the discovery of an illegal Chinese biolab here in California. Here is the story from Zero Hedge. Let's get into it. It says, I've never seen anything like this. Mysterious Chinese biolab discovered in remote California city. Why would a biolab run by a shady Chinese company be operating in Reedley, California in the central San Joaquin Valley? So this biolab was discovered in Reedley, California, which is around the Fresno, California area. And it turns out that this company the way they discovered it was that an official noticed that there was this hose coming out of this warehouse building, just like a hole was carved into the wall and somebody stuck a hose through the wall. And that is clearly not to code. And so they thought something's weird. And this inspector was looking around and noticed a really odd smell and saw this hose coming out of the building and decided to do a bit of investigation, knocked on the door. Some people answered the door, Chinese people answered the door and said that they were from China, said that their boss was not around, that their boss was from China. And this person that was doing the investigation or inspection noticed that they had that it was clearly some sort of a lab inside. They ended up going in to the place and they found like 900 rats or mice. They ended up having to euthanize a bunch of them. They found a bunch of different materials, hazardous materials. They had blood, tissue samples, various different chemicals. They found all kinds of different other hazardous kind of infectious agents, including COVID, HIV, hepatitis, and herpes. This was all discovered really early on. This was actually discovered, I believe, in December. Last December it was discovered. And then they had been updating the public a little bit here and there, really keeping it very hush. And there's a big conspiracy theory around this. And so we're going to break this down a little bit because a couple of the theories were, for one, why did they discover this so long ago? And yet just now the facts are starting to leak out to the public, or not leak out, but the departments are, the public departments, the officials are starting to now release some information. Why did it take so long for this information to be released to the public about this Chinese-owned biolab found in California? The second question was, why did Gavin Newsom's administration grant this biolab $360,000 in tax credits? So there's that question. Why were they given any money? Lastly, when county officials were given directives on how to answer questions by the public, they were sent an email, and the email basically directed them to say nothing, to say not much, basically to say, this is an ongoing investigation and can't really comment on that.
These long lines of refrigerators and freezers, these are freezers along the side here. Down this side is where we had the -80 freezers. Those were a particular concern to us. -80 freezers are really there to really keep certain infectious agents in that type of a state, so they're not infecting other areas when they're actually exposed to the environment. So we were definitely concerned about those -80s, but all these materials here, these refrigerators and freezers were full. Here's what we saw. This is one of the freezers there, what we saw in there as well. Some more blood sample, tissues, serum. There is just so much material. Here's some more photos of that. Again, what you saw in the city of Fresno, you're seeing those boxes. This is some ethanol here. You're seeing chemicals throughout the site. I wanted to share these photos because look how tightly compacted this is. When we first, and I'll get to this here a little bit later, all we could categorize is what we could see. But as we started moving the boxes with City of Reedley, we're finding more and more as we go through this site here. The refrigerator freezers, as you can see, all this was wrapped up. This was items that we saw at City of Fresno that are now over at the Reedley site.
Now, so most of the bodily fluids that they discovered, like the blood and the urine and tissue samples, that was from people taking the test. So the blood samples were from people that had given the blood for the test, or they had peed on the pregnancy test, things like that. So it wasn't like they were storing necessarily urine and blood. And the samples that they had discovered were from people taking these tests. And this lab was apparently supposed to be processing these tests.